Every farmer who has ever watched a hay delivery arrive and felt the price sting knows exactly what I'm talking about. You stack it, you store it, you pray it stays dry, and then you do it all over again next year, paying more each time with no end in sight. Here is what no one tells you when you get into livestock farming. That cycle was not always the way. For generations, certain farmers grew a single plant once, and it fed their animals through every season after that, without replanting, without storage, and without a feed bill that kept climbing. That knowledge did not disappear because it failed. It got pushed aside when modern agriculture made purchasing easier than growing. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that plant is, how it works, whether it can actually work where you live, and what your ancestors understood about feeding a herd that most modern farmers were never taught. If you believe real food security starts on your own land, this content was built for you. Before we get to the plant itself, it helps to understand exactly why the system we replaced it with keeps failing small farmers. Every fall across America, the same quiet panic begins on small farms and homesteads. Hay prices climb, storage fills up, and farmers who depend on baled hay start doing math that never quite adds up. This has become so normal that most people never stop to question it. But the truth is, the modern hay dependency is not how traditional farming worked. It is a relatively recent system, and for millions of small-scale farmers, it is quietly becoming unaffordable. Here is the real problem with traditional hay. First, hay is a seasonal crop. It is cut, dried, baled, and stored, and every one of those steps costs time, equipment, or money. When drought hits, as it has repeatedly across the American Midwest and Southwest in recent decades, hay prices spike in ways that devastate small operations. Families who have raised cattle or goats for generations find themselves one dry summer away from selling their animals. Second, hay requires storage, a dry barn, protection from moisture, proper ventilation. For a senior farmer or a homesteader just starting out, building and maintaining that infrastructure is a real barrier, and hay that gets wet becomes moldy. Moldy hay does not just go to waste, it can make your livestock seriously ill. Third, the nutritional quality of stored hay declines over time. The longer it sits, the more its protein and vitamin content breaks down. What looks like a full, healthy barn in October can be delivering far less nutrition to your animals by February. Your herd may look fed and still be quietly struggling, and that is a concern worth taking seriously. And here is the truth most people never hear. None of this was necessary for most of human farming history. Our ancestors, whether in the American South, rural Appalachia, or across West Africa and Southeast Asia, did not rely on baled, stored hay as their primary livestock feed. They relied on living forage systems, plants that kept growing, kept feeding, and kept giving without being replanted season after season. The question worth asking is simple. Why did we stop? This is where things start to change. The plant at the center of this video is called Napier grass, sometimes called elephant grass, because of how aggressively and how tall it grows. It has been a primary livestock fodder crop across East Africa, South Asia, and Latin America for over a century, and it has a quiet but real history in the American South as well. Now, before anything else, the most important question for any American viewer is this: where does it actually grow in the United States? Napier grass is a warm climate perennial. It thrives in USDA hardiness zones 8 through 11, which covers much of the American South, the Gulf Coast, Florida, coastal Georgia, and the Carolinas, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern California. In those regions, it genuinely grows year-round with minimal care. If you are in a colder northern state, zone 6 or 7, Napier grass can still be grown as a warm season annual, meaning you plant it in spring and harvest through fall before the first frost kills it back. It will not overwinter in those climates, but a single growing season of consistent cutting still delivers significant feed value and meaningful savings on summer hay costs. This is an honest point worth making clearly. Napier grass is not a nationwide solution for every climate in every season. But for the millions of farmers and homesteaders living in warmer American climates, it is one of the most productive, sustainable, and genuinely self-sufficient fodder systems available. What makes it remarkable is the root system. You plant it once from stem cuttings, not seeds, not expensive nursery stock, just sections of stem from an existing plant. And those roots establish and deepen with every passing season. The plant does not need to be replanted each year. In the right climate, that root system keeps pushing new growth back up for many years, often a decade or longer if the soil and cutting schedule are managed well. It grows in poor soil. It tolerates dry periods once established. It does not require purchased fertilizer to remain productive. And when you cut it, you do not dry it, store it, or bale it. You carry it fresh from the field directly to your animals. For cattle, goats, sheep, rabbits, and pigs, it provides consistent daily forage that supports healthy weight gain and strong milk production. Not as a magic fix, but as a reliable, low-cost foundation for a working feed system. Research institutions and agricultural universities across East Africa, India, and Latin America have studied this plant extensively. What they found consistently is that small-scale farmers who adopted Napier grass as their primary forage crop significantly reduced their feed costs, maintained healthy, productive animals, and built more resilient farm operations than those who depended entirely on purchased or stored feed. And in the American South, across parts of Florida, Texas, Georgia, and the Gulf Coast, older farmers may already recognize it growing along fence lines and creek banks, growing back aggressively no matter how many times it was cut. Its full potential as a primary sustainable replacement for seasonal hay has largely been overlooked by mainstream American farming culture. That oversight is exactly what this video is here to correct. Understanding why Napier grass works begins with understanding how our ancestors actually used it. There was no complexity, no special equipment, no ongoing cost, just a simple, repeatable system built around the natural rhythm of the plant itself. All they needed was a small strip of land and a handful of stem cuttings. Not seeds purchased from a supplier, not seedlings from a nursery, just sections of stem cut from an existing Napier grass plant. Each roughly 1 to 2 feet long, containing at least 2 to 3 nodes, the small joints along the stem where roots and new shoots emerge. For a senior farmer or small homesteader, this is a critical point. You are not dependent on a seed company. You are not waiting on a shipment that may arrive late or cost more than expected. You source cuttings from a neighbor, a local agricultural extension office, a university farm program, or an online homesteading community, and you plant them once. Everything that follows comes from that single act. A planting of Napier grass as small as 1/4 of an acre can go a long way towards supporting a small herd in a warm climate. Those are general guidelines, not guarantees. Actual yields will vary based on your soil quality, rainfall, and how consistently you manage your cutting schedule. The point is that the land requirement is genuinely small compared to what traditional hay production demands. The practice is simple and entirely observable. Stem cuttings are planted at a slight angle into prepared soil, spaced roughly 3 feet apart in rows. Planting at an angle encourages rooting from multiple nodes along the stem and helps the plant establish faster and more reliably than planting straight down. Within 6 to 8 weeks of planting, the grass has typically grown to a harvestable height. The ancestral rule was consistent and practical. Cut when the plant reaches roughly 3 to 4 ft tall, leaving at least 1 ft of stem above the ground. That remaining stem and root system is what drives the regrowth. Do not cut it to the ground. Do not pull it. Simply take what you need and leave the base intact. Cut. Feed fresh to your animals. Walk away. Return in 6 to 8 weeks and harvest again. No drying, no baling, no storage infrastructure, no hay barn to maintain, no bales to haul and stack. Just fresh, nutritious forage delivered directly from the field to your animals on the day it is cut. In communities across East Africa and South Asia, where this system has been practiced for generations, farmers would time their cutting cycles around their animals' needs, cutting more frequently during peak milk production for dairy animals, and allowing slightly longer growth periods during dry seasons to build deeper root reserves. And this is where things start to change, because what makes this system truly different from anything modern agriculture offers is not the first year. It is what happens in the years that follow. The deeper and older the root system grows, the more resilient and productive the plant becomes. In its first year, Napier grass is already useful in providing genuine feed value. In its third year, it is exceptional. By its fifth year and beyond, the root system is so well established that the plant regrows faster, produces more biomass per cutting, and tolerates stress, drought, poor soil, and irregular cutting schedules far better than it did when it was young. Communities that adopted this system also shared it naturally. Stem cuttings cost nothing to propagate. A farmer who established one row could provide cuttings to a neighbor the following season at no cost. The system spread because it rewarded sharing rather than dependency on outside suppliers. That is the essence of a true ancestral sustainable investment. It grows in value over time, costs less as it matures, and strengthens every family and every farm that embraces it. Now here's the part that actually makes this worth your time. What this system delivers for your animals over the long run. What makes Napier grass more than a convenient ground cover? What makes it a genuinely life-changing tool for any serious homesteader or small farmer is its nutritional profile and the documented payoff it has delivered across generations and continents. Start with what your animals are actually receiving. Young Napier grass shoots harvested at 3 to 4 FT contain crude protein levels that are genuinely competitive with quality purchased hay. The younger the cut, the higher the protein density. As the plant matures beyond 5 to 6 FT, fiber increases and protein decreases, which is why timing your harvest matters. Beyond protein, Napier grass provides meaningful levels of calcium and phosphorus, both essential for healthy bone development, strong milk production in dairy animals, and reproductive health across your herd. Animals fed consistently on fresh Napier grass have been documented across multiple agricultural studies as maintaining healthy body weight, productive milk yields, and strong overall condition. One thing worth saying clearly, Napier grass is an excellent forage foundation, but depending on your animal's production goals, you may still want to supplement with minerals or a small amount of grain. This does not eliminate every feed cost. What it does is reduce your primary forage dependency dramatically, which for most small farms is where the real money goes. For cattle, this is significant. American beef and dairy farmers spend a large portion of their annual operating budget on feed supplements designed to fill the nutritional gaps left by poor quality hay or inadequate pasture. Napier grass harvested consistently at the right stage closes many of those gaps naturally and affordably. For goats, one of the most practical and beloved animals on any senior homestead, Napier grass is particularly well suited. Goats are browsers by nature, but they adapt readily to a cut and carry system, meaning you bring the forage directly to them rather than relying on open pasture rotation. This makes Napier grass ideal for homesteaders with limited fencing, smaller properties, or animals that need to be kept within defined areas. For rabbits, which are increasingly popular among seniors and small-scale homesteaders for their low cost, quiet temperament, and highly nutritious meat, Napier grass provides an excellent daily supplement that supports healthy growth and reduces the need for purchased pellet feed significantly. Across East Africa, entire communities built productive, self-sufficient dairy industries, generating family income, improving nutrition, and creating genuine long-term stability on the foundation of the single plant. That same principle applies here in America. For seniors and homesteaders managing small operations on fixed budgets, reducing your core forage cost by a substantial margin is not a minor convenience. It is a structural change in how financially resilient your farm becomes season after season. This is where most people who try Napier grass get it wrong, and it is a simple thing to fix once you know it. The single most common mistake is allowing the plant to grow too tall before cutting. This seems counterintuitive at first. More growth should mean more feed, right? But Napier grass does not work that way. Once the plant surpasses roughly 5 to 6 FT in height, the stems begin to lignify. They become woody, tough, and fibrous in a way that animals find far less palatable and far less digestible. At that stage, the plant looks impressive and abundant, but it is delivering significantly less nutritional value per bite than a younger, shorter cut would have provided. Experienced ancestral farmers understood this intuitively. They did not wait for the largest possible harvest before cutting. They cut regularly and consistently, keeping the plant within its most nutritious and most productive growth window. That rhythm, cut early, cut often, is what sustained these systems across generations and made them genuinely reliable rather than just occasionally useful. The second forgotten detail is one that elevates an already strong system into something truly remarkable, and it involves a companion plant. For generations across East Africa, farmers growing Napier grass noticed that plots planted alongside a low-growing legume called desmodium, sometimes called tick clover in the American South, consistently produced animals that were healthier, heavier, and more productive than those fed Napier grass alone. The reason is elegant and deeply practical. Desmodium is a nitrogen-fixing plant. Its root system draws nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and deposits it into the surrounding soil, naturally fertilizing the ground around your Napier grass without any purchased input whatsoever. This causes the Napier grass to grow more vigorously and with measurably higher protein content season after season. The combination has been formally studied and documented by agricultural researchers who found that the Napier and Desmodium pairing also naturally repels stem borers, one of the most destructive pests affecting Napier grass in warm climates, without the use of chemical pesticides. For American homesteaders, Desmodium is not difficult to source. Several native species grow naturally across the American South and Southeast and can be found through native plant nurseries, university extension programs, or seed suppliers focused on sustainable and regenerative agriculture. One final practical detail: fresh Napier grass has a high moisture content. This is genuinely excellent for animal hydration, particularly during hot American summers. But it does mean that animals transitioning from a dry hay diet need time to adjust. Do not make the switch overnight. Introduce fresh Napier grass gradually over 1 to 2 weeks, mixing it with existing feed before making a full transition. This prevents digestive upset and gives your animals time to adapt comfortably. It is not a difficult process, but skipping it is the most common reason people try this system and report problems in the early weeks. Once the transition is complete, most animals take to it readily and consistently. These are the details that separate a true steward from a hobbyist. Anyone can plant a grass. Understanding how to manage it at every stage, that is where the real, lasting, life-changing value lives. Here is something rarely discussed honestly in American farming circles, but it is one of the most truthful observations about why so many modern livestock operations quietly struggle year after year. Most plant and animal systems did not fail because they were weak. They failed because people tried to modernize and scale what was meant to stay simple. When you take a perennial plant that has sustained families for generations, one that regrows on its own, enriches its own soil, and asks almost nothing from you, and you try to force it into an industrial model built on maximum output and constant intervention, you break the very qualities that made it work in the first place. The strength of a system like Napier grass is not measured in commercial yield per acre. It is measured in resilience, in independence, in its quiet refusal to fail under the conditions, drought, limited cash, limited land, that would collapse a purchased, storage-dependent feed operation entirely. In a time when feed costs continue to climb and small farms are being squeezed harder than most people want to admit, that kind of natural resilience is not a secondary consideration. It is the most important and most sustainable investment any farmer, young or old, can make in the long-term future of their land and their family. The more natural the system, the more resilient it becomes. That is not a slogan. It is a pattern that holds across every generation that tried it honestly and gave it the time it needed to work. You do not need more animals to build something that lasts. You need the right knowledge and the honesty to apply it at a pace that actually works for your land and your life. Napier grass is one planting, a small investment of time, a few stem cuttings, and a single prepared strip of ground. In return, it gives you years of reliable, low-cost forage that you grow, cut, and feed yourself without the seasonal dependency, the storage headaches, or the feed bills that keep climbing, regardless of how carefully you budget. It will not solve every problem your farm has. Nothing does. But for the farmers and homesteaders who have made this shift, the difference in time, money, and peace of mind is real, and it compounds every season the roots grow deeper. Pick one thing from today and act on it this week. Find out if your hardiness zone qualifies. Source a few cuttings. Reach out to your local agricultural extension office and ask what they know about perennial forage options in your area. That is how a forgotten system comes back to life. One honest decision on one real piece of land. If this story changed the way you look at the forage in your fields, please subscribe and like the channel. We are uncovering the history that they tried to bury. Plant the future. The next treasure will be open soon.